Hello, folks, and welcome to the show. This week, we feature a Reiki master, a spiritual shamanist, fellow podcaster, the host of My Weird Experience. Great podcast. I'd like to welcome Tina Clarke to the show. How you doing, Tina?
Great. How are you?
Excellent. I've been able to listen to a few of your episodes, and I think they are very fascinating. Especially the one, I think it might be even your most recent. I think it was like episode 38, if my memory serves me right, where you guys were talking about 9/11 and how the person that was on your show was actually kind of there. So that was pretty intense.
Yes.
So I can only imagine, how she felt and some of the things that she went through, and even probably how she still feels. I'm sure it resonates, some pretty strong emotions when, the topic comes up or something like that. And even for you, I think you were in DC when it happened, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I was working for the federal government. So I was very close to the White House. And I was at work already. And my fiance, now husband, he calls me and he says, this is really weird, but a plane hit one of the towers. And I was like, well, that's strange. And then obviously 10 minutes later, he calls me back and he's freaking out. He's like, you need to leave right now. You need to come home right now. And I was like, what's going on? He's like, another plane hit. And I don't know if at this time it had collapsed or not, but I said, I am not going anywhere because I don't know what's going on out there. So, there was rumors there was a bomb at the State Department that ended up not being true, but Pentagon was hit with,
Mhm.
you know, I don't believe a plane, but it was hit. It was on fire. And so I ended up going home later that afternoon when things kind of calmed down. But the Pentagon was still smoldering when we drove by it
I was
that
gonna ask
afternoon.
you. Yeah, I remember you saying that now, and I was gonna ask you, did you see, like, I don't, not that I want to turn this into a conspiracy episode, but did you see that, like, plane debris outside, like, when you passed the Pentagon? Did it look like a plane had wrecked? Or because that
No,
a lot of people say that, and it
no.
doesn't. Yeah, yeah,
I mean, I have pictures of it afterwards. You know, it doesn't look like it's too small to be a plane hitting there. So, yeah,
and the
yeah.
same way with the plane that wrecked in Pennsylvania. I heard that they didn't find a lot of debris there. It was like no plane wreck ever seen before. It just kind of was like some fire and some trash on the ground, and
Yep.
I don't know. It was
Somehow everything got, incinerated. Every little piece of that
yeah,
thing got incinerated on that field.
yeah, it's pretty crazy. And I actually did appreciate, though, your guess, because I think she had mentioned, like, didn't she see the planes, like fly up over top of her head?
She did. And she was in her apartment with her husband and she got blasted back into the
Yeah.
apartment, fell backwards into the apartment on the ground.
Which that was cool for me, because, like, I know there's video obviously of the planes hitting, but, like, I even often wondered sometimes, like, damn, did the planes even hit the buildings? Because I don't
Right.
feel like, and obviously from her story, like, the planes really did hit the buildings. Like, she's seen the planes, they hit the buildings, but I feel like the buildings were taken down in some other way than the planes. It looked like
Yeah.
controlled demolition.
Yes. I
Because
agree.
the buildings didn't kind of, like, they didn't topple over or, like, fall in such a way that, from the force of the plane. I mean, they kind of just came all straight down.
That was the shocking part for me is how does a plane bring down a tower that's over 100 stories tall?
And I think
It
they were
didn't,
designed to take plane wrecks too.
yeah, it didn't make sense to me at
No,
all, even
no,
back then.
no.
Yeah.
And then the fact that there was reports of explosions in the basement makes you wonder. A lot of people had mentioned that. um Interesting. Just interesting. The powers that be that control our country doing stuff like that to their own people. I mean, I don't know, maybe not. It could be anybody. I guess maybe it was terrorists. I don't know. But it
Do
just
you
makes you,
remember Bush's reaction when they whispered in his ear that it had happened? And to me, he had a non-reaction to it.
mhm. Yeah, kind of like he already knew and like, okay, it's
Yeah.
done. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't want
Yeah.
to, I don't want to speculate, but there's a lot of
Watch
evidence.
the video.
Yeah.
Watch the video. So if
Yeah.
you know anything about body language,
Yeah.
energy,
Yeah.
who's telling the truth, what do they know? Watch the video. I'm sure you can find it. Your audience members can find it.
Yeah.
Watch him. Watch his reaction. Is this a normal reaction to a tragedy?
Mm. Yeah. Interesting. So your background, can we get like an overview for the listeners to kind of get a sense of who you are as, kind of, I mean, obviously they know you kind of experienced 9/11 in a, really, I don't know, scary way, I guess, but
Yeah.
I mean, you as a person, who are you? And you kind of give the listeners, a feel for kind of who you are.
hmm So I'm from New York City, actually. So 9/11 was a double whammy for me. So attack on hometown, attack on current residence, because I was in Northern Virginia at the time. I've always been very highly sensitive. And I come from a long line of sensitive people who didn't do anything with their sensitivity, which it's not a fault of their own, it's just a sign of the times. But I didn't really see much. It's not like I had, an invisible friend, or I had an angel come at 5 years old and teach me everything I knew. That is not what happened to me. I just know that I was very sensitive, and I felt spirit, and I knew when spirit was in the room, and I would see faces when I was a child, and in things that weren't supposed to see faces in. So, and I was very scared and terrified as a child, and that's a sign of a psychic or psychic medium abilities in a child, because they're picking up on something that most people aren't, and it makes them afraid, and no one is there to explain to them what's happening to them.
Now,
So go ahead.
now I was just going to ask you, now these faces, were they some people that you knew, probably not because you were young, right? But were they maybe possibly like old ancestors, or was it like, were they more like demonic looking, or
um it's hard to say, because when you're afraid, you've got a certain perspective. um like I my sister and I had a bunk bed, and I would sleep on the bottom bunk bed, and you know how you looked at the top of the bottom of her bed, and I would see faces in it. Like I saw skull faces. So I would sleep with the angel nightlight over my head, which of course my sister teased me about. She's like, "Why are you 9 years old and you need an angel nightlight?" Well, I will tell you, to this day, I sleep with a nightlight when I'm by myself, because I need to see what's in the room.
yes, I get it. I get it. Now, do you still see visions or apparitions, or
Oh, yeah. So I wanted to tell the story of when I was 6 years old. I ended up getting pneumonia, and I had a very high fever. And I was at home the first couple of days, but I remember being in my bedroom alone, and it was daytime, but I was laying down, and I looked up into the corner of the room, and there was a woman and a man up there, but they were bodiless. Like all I could see was neck up. and they were talking to each other and laughing. And I called my mother, terrified, and she came running in, and I said, "Mom, there's people in the room and they're looking at me." And I was upset they were laughing. Like I felt like they were laughing at me, and maybe that wasn't accurate, but that's how I felt at the time. And she's, obviously looking around the room. She doesn't see anything. And I realized she couldn't see what I saw. And so she left and they were still there. And I was terrified. I didn't know how to get rid of them. And they just stayed in their little corner of the room looking at me and talking and laughing. And I think I probably pulled the blankets over my head like a kid does and go away, go away, go away. So when I reflected on that later as a young adult, I thought, well, maybe I had a high fever and, I was hallucinating. But as I woke up in my spiritual journey and I realized that not only did I feel spirit, I see spirit and communicate with spirit now, that those were actually spirits in my room. But because I was so sick, my, boundaries and protections kind of were weak at the time. And I couldn't like block out the fact that they were there. Because normally as a kid, I could block it out enough that I didn't see anything. I knew someone is in the room, but I didn't want to see it. I would say that as in my 20s, I know you're in the room, but I don't want to see you. Don't show yourself.
Wow. So
And they wouldn't.
you just get like a feeling and you would just know like there's a presence here.
Yeah, it's like a person walking in the room.
Yeah.
Or like, you feel when someone's eyes land on you. You could be
Yeah.
anywhere, right?
Absolutely.
And your eyes meet, except that person's not physical in there. They're watching you, but you can't really see them, but you can feel them.
Mm-hmm. Now, would you pick up on emotions as well sometimes, or?
Oh yeah, I was when I started getting readings from other psychic mediums, they would tell me over and over again, you are such a strong empath. You're just picking up on everything and absorbing everything. And so, yeah, I think imagine if you're a girl in New York City with 8 million people and all that
No,
energy
no.
and yeah. So I call it boot camp for psychics
Yep.
because I think I became a good blocker as a result, which serves me to this day because I work with a lot of empaths and sensitives, and they're just walking around like an open book. And the first thing I have to teach them is stop it, close it, shield it, know what's
Yeah.
yours and not yours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to do, especially if you don't know you're an empath, I think, and you don't really know where the emotions are coming from or the feelings that you pick up on, and you kind of wear them on your sleeve as they're your own and they're not. And that some make it even uncomfortable to just go to like the supermarket or something and be around people. So I couldn't imagine being like in New York City and trying to like walk down the street with a crowd of people. Wow.
Yeah. I highly recommend people getting readings about themselves because you really learn a lot about yourself. And I had a reading from an astrocartographer, which is a astrologer who looks at places, like where you've been born, where you were born, and where you lived and why. And he actually had an angelic connection, so he would talk to your angels about why you were born. And he told me New York City had some teachers for me. And that's why I was born there. But he said that I was overwhelmed by the darkness sometimes. But he said it was like a phoenix type of experience where I would like I would die and reborn and die and reborn. And I was like, yeah, that's why I stay away from New York now.
That's funny. That's an interesting take. So he actually studies where you live, and wow.
Yeah, and he looks at places that you are drawn to
Mm.
also that you visit. Like I've been to Montana 6 times.
Now, is that because of a past life, or is that just
Yeah, so
yeah?
he was able to tell me, he said, "You were a medicine woman out in Montana, and that land, you worked on the land and you were like a mediator among the tribes. And when the tribes would fight and they leave the battleground, you would clear the battleground and bless the
Whoa.
land." So he said, he said the angels, which I have a very huge angelic connection. He said, your angels are saying they don't look at the way they look at you energetically is a medicine woman.
Mm. That
That's
is
how they see you.
fascinating.
So I keep going back there because the land literally is like, it just hugs me and loves me
That is
and it knows
so
me out there.
interesting. I never thought of it
Yeah.
that way. See, now I wonder because I moved out to Phoenix twice. I've lived out in Phoenix twice now, but I'm originally from Ohio. I had no connection whatsoever to Phoenix. Moved my whole family out there. We lived out there for a couple years. I ended up coming back, and then I moved out there again. Uh, that's just interesting. I wonder if there's a connection there. Pretty cool.
Always, because I've been to places where I'm like so excited to be there, and I've never been there before.
Mm,
Or I've been to Italy a few times, and I would leave and miss it,
like home
and I
almost,
only
huh?
vacation there. And the Renaissance, oh, it's totally alive at the Renaissance. I mean,
Um,
when I went to Florence, I was like, oh, so excited. It's like I just wanted to absorb everything and touch everything and look at everything in Florence.
that's cool. Now, have you ever had a regression done?
I did. I had a awakening like in 2011, and I started diving deep into everything. And before the show, we started recording the show, I was talking about how I read 100 books already this year. And so I'm always learning, I'm always learning about new things. And my friend last night, I told her, I was like, I want to learn about sound healing. And it's like, Tina, it's like you never stop. I was like, why would I? There's too much to learn. There's too much to know,
That's
you
right.
know? Yeah.
That's
So I'm
right.
sorry, I forgot what your question was.
I love that idea. I just asked you if you ever been regressed before.
Oh, I did get regressed, and I chose a woman in Northern Virginia who was trained by Dr. Brian Weiss, and he's a author and
Wow.
psychotherapist of
Yeah.
many books.
Yeah.
And she was trained, I forget the name of who trained them, but she had the same teacher as him. So I chose her, and yeah, we went back to some interesting lives. And I was recently, I don't know, listening to podcasts, maybe yours, and they were talking about past lives and how that person said, well, maybe I just made it up. And I'm like, well, you can't make up feelings. Like if you are viewing yourself in a past life and you feel all the terror of that you're about to die, for example, you can't create that. You can't fake that. It just comes. And so that's what makes it real
It
is the
it does.
feelings and the
Yeah,
emotions.
I agree
We're
with
thinking
that.
I'm gonna make up terror. I'm not even an actress.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And you just pick up on things, right? When you're in a regression. You just I don't know, there's just a knowing. If you see somebody in the regression, you just know who it is. Even if it's crazy because if you run into somebody in the regression, you know who it is in that lifetime, but you also know if they're in your lifetime currently, you know who they are in relation to that. And you just
Yeah.
know, like
Hmm.
instantly almost. It's so bizarre.
Yeah. I used to keep track of my lives. Like I probably still have the Word document. And when I got to about 50, I was like, I've had a lot of lives and I don't think I need to track them anymore. I've just done a lot and been a lot. And, people ask me, what were you in other lives? And I said, everything. I've done everything.
That's a cool answer. That's a cool answer. And you got a lot more to do, right? You're gonna have a lot more to do. That's cool. Very cool. So, what is the idea behind the podcast? I love the name, by the way. I think it's a great name and it's perfect for your show. I mean, it fits it well. But what is the idea behind the podcast?
The idea is that people have experiences that may be odd or unusual, and they're unable to share them. And it gives people a venue, an opportunity to share their oddest, weirdest experience without any judgment in a safe environment. Because look at me. I can give you tons of odd stories and I tell them all the time to my close friends and family because I'm blessed to have them. But there are people out there, they can't talk to anybody about this. So, and I love storytelling. I think we learn from stories. I think we've always told stories to each other as part of entertainment. And we should continue telling our stories because we learn from them. We heal from them. And so I came up with podcast because in the middle of COVID, things were kind of slow. And I was like, well, I'm going to pick a title and I'm going to contact the coolest, oddest people I know and get them on the show. And it just took off from there.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So, with that being said, what is your weirdest experience that you can share?
There's so many, it would be hard. Like, pick a topic.
UFOs.
Okay. See, that makes it easier for me. My whole life was a weird experience.
No, okay, let's do this one then. Do you have any experiences with cryptids?
Yes.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay. So when I was out in Montana in 2018, I was out there looking at megaliths. So we have dolmens and megaliths out in Montana. So once I learned about this, I was like, oh, well, I need to see these and touch them and be around them. So Julie Ryder's the kind of guardian of these places. She's discovered many of them. You can check her out, montanamegaliths.com. It's all out there. And she took me and my friend into the forest for 3 days. And because we're all shamans, of course, we did ceremony, we did blessings, we did clearings, whatever we were called to do out there. And I was out at Starfire Duolith, which is this huge, huge megalith. And I decided to walk to the left of the megalith, and my friend walked to the right, you know, just to be on our own. And I saw an X of trees. And I was like, I know what this is because I have a healthy fascination with Sasquatch. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. So, being the person that I am, I know that this probably means keep out or it's some sort of sign this is our territory. So I walked in there and I said, can I have your permission to walk through here? In my mind. So we're talking about telepathic, this is how you speak to spirit. And I got a yes. And I said, okay. So I walked around, but I was still very respectful because I knew this was their area. But I felt from them that they were not sure about me, that they, even though I got a yes, they were guarded, was the energy. So I was taking pictures, I took some pictures and then I just quickly left. Then at the end of the trip was probably, I came home a couple weeks later, and of course I was in the bathroom, and I did one of my I wonder questions in my head. So sometimes I do this and I get an answer. Okay. I do this a lot. I have a healthy curiosity. I'm like, oh, I wonder. And I said, I wonder if Sasquatch can enter your house. And I got an answer, yes, we can, but we like to get permission first, which is actually interesting because it kind of parallels me going into their house. It just hit me right now how parallel that story is. But I got a yes. And so I started having a conversation with a Sasquatch in Montana named Joseph. And he was the head of the clan of that area that I walked into. And then I just started asking him a lot of questions.
Okay. So since you got to interview a Sasquatch, that is definitely a weird experience. I've got to ask you, because it's something that drives me crazy. Are they spiritual and interdimensional, or are they just physical creatures like you and I?
They're interdimensional.
Yeah, that's what I
Well,
figured.
we are interdimensional.
Yeah, we are.
Okay. So we are humans. We are spirit. We have a soul. Our soul is so huge and powerful that we can have like hundreds of thousands of lives at the same time. Okay. So think of it as we have a piece of our soul within our bodies that are operating as, Tina,
Right.
um, and as you right now
Hmm.
in this moment. And so I always try to put myself in Sasquatch shoes. Okay, so if I am the king of the forest, and hunters talk about this being when you're in the quiet of the forest, you're more connected, you're more sensitive. So imagine if you lived there all the time and you're very connected to your environment. You're like one with your environment, literally. And you you've done this for thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, or how long they've been here. And, you know, they are masters of their environment, you know, and they are the apex of their environment. So they can blend in, they can sit still. And that's just their physical talents. Forget about their spiritual talents. So yes, I think there are portals on this planet. I think there are interplanetary portals, um, like Utah. I think there are full of them out there in the Southwest. And I think the forest has portals too. And they go in and out of these, and they can become like chameleons energetically. And I've heard they could blend with trees and rocks, and you won't be able to see them. And I've never seen one. I've
Wow.
asked them, I
Right.
asked them to come out. I said, throw a pine cone at me in Montana. And they don't. And they're very respectful of me.
Hmm.
They don't want to scare me because they're scary.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can imagine. I I don't know if I'd want to see one in the woods, but especially if I was by myself.
Right. And I
It,
don't go in the woods by myself. Normally, I don't. There's certain woods that, like Montana, I feel completely safe.
mhm.
And where I live in Charleston, South Carolina, some of the woods out here, I don't feel comfortable at all.
Right.
So it depends on the location.
I get that. Um, I get it. It's strange how certain locations hold a different type of energy, and you can just get a vibe on it, and it's just like you just know right away, like this just doesn't feel right.
Right, right.
What do you think that is?
I think it depends on what happened on that land and also who has called the woods home. And spirit hangs out in the woods, especially at night. So if there's a they're angry spirits or malevolent spirits, you're going to feel that and you're not going to feel welcome.
Wow. That's Can you talk to me a little bit more about your spirit shamanist? Like what is it like a is it like a practice? Is it just something that you do to kind of you can do like protection and stuff like that, right? And
Yeah, so a psychic is someone who picks up on extra information. A medium is someone who communicates with spirit and just relays the messages. A shaman actually works in tandem with spirit and can help humans and or spirits that need their help. So when I became a Reiki master in 2015, my same teacher was also practicing shamanism. So she taught me that, taught me how to shamanic journey and do soul retrievals. And I naturally started helping and working and visiting the spirit world and on behalf of my clients and myself. And or I would just do shamanic journeys and say, hey, just take me where you need me. What can I help with?
now do you also do like a form of meditation or no?
Well, a shamanic journey is like a guided meditation to drumming music.
Mm,
So there's a process to it,
mm-hmm.
and you go through that process, and um, it's awesome. I love it. It's super fun. And I've taught it to other people. Some people can do it and some people can't. They need to work on more their psychic senses, their clairaudience, which is hearing, and their clairvoyance, which is seeing. You need both to shamanic journey.
I've often wondered that you mentioned that, some people can and some people can't. Do you think it's just, is that a byproduct of maybe somebody just not being mature enough in certain areas? Or is it like part of somebody's programming and you're just kind of born that way with extra sensitivity than other people? Or is it maybe I don't know, does it have to do with possibly what they've been through and their experiences in life that's led them to being that sensitive? What do you think it is? Or is it a combination of things?
All of it. And I do believe being human, you are psychic already. Everybody is psychic. It's just, we're a combination of what we have done in other lives. So I've brought in a lot of work that I've done in other lives in this lifetime. So I consciously pull from that. Um, and it has to do with fear. If you're afraid or you doubt yourself, you'll block yourself big time. So you have to get over your fear and you have to believe in yourself. Like, believe that the information you're getting is accurate or accurate to your best ability. If you are trying to connect and you keep saying, I'm not sure if this is right, you are not going to go very far. So it's a leap of faith, you know. I just decided I'm getting information that nobody else is, and I'm doing my best to understand it and relay the message. And I'm going to believe in myself and, getting the best information I can at this moment.
That's fascinating. And you mentioned that you believe that everybody as humans have some psychic ability. Now, some people may scoff at that, but if you really stop and think about it, right? I think everybody listening right now has had an experience where possibly you're getting ready to text somebody and they text you first, or you think about somebody that you haven't talked to in a long time and then they call you, or just weird stuff like that. Or like you said earlier, that like you just know when somebody's looking at you. That's like a psychic ability or a sense that's like,
Right.
yeah.
Right. And I pay attention. I'm very practiced at paying attention to those things. So I'm always like, if someone pops in my mind that I haven't thought about in a long time, I think, is that person thinking about me right now? And is that why I'm thinking of that person right now? And if it happens often enough, I might reach out. Depends on the circumstances, if it ended well or not well. But it's those kind of things. Like before cell phones, did you ever have an experience of picking up the phone to call someone and they were already on the other end of the
Yes.
line?
Yes, I think a lot of people have before cell phones. I really do.
Yes, I've
Yes.
had that too. And I'm like, I was just about to call you.
It's the
So
weirdest thing. Yeah.
now with cell phones, it'll be like I'll text someone and they'll say, I was just thinking of you, or I was just thinking about texting you at that very moment. So we are in sync. We're very in sync with each other.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, what is your belief in the afterlife then? Where do we go from here?
So the afterlife is, it depends on your belief system and what you were told and what you believe when you die, actually. So
That's interesting.
your energy, you are energy, pure energy, and so am I. So when you die, you leave your physical body, but you still are you. You have your spirit now. And so if you believe that there's another side where all your loved ones are, you're going to go there. If you believe that you are a bad person and you're going to be punished for what you've done, you're either not going to leave the earthly plane and become a ghost, or you're going to end up someplace their belief system created that's going to be like hell. And so I've interviewed a couple of people on NDEs, near death experiences. One woman had a negative experience, and I don't know, she didn't know why she ended up there, but she was like revisiting traumatic things that happened in her lifetime. And as I was listening to her story, I was waiting for the moment when she would ask for help to get out of it, because I knew that was the key. And she did, but she did it in an unusual way. She started singing a song. And when she sang the song and the people with her were singing, she got pulled out of that horrific experience. And I said, that song was your prayer for help. That's how it got you out of that. And then she was in the light.
That's interesting. I've interviewed a couple people too that have had near deaths that the one lady who said she went to hell, but it was like a similar thing. She was able to get out of it and go to a nicer place. I
Yeah.
think there is something to that, your belief system. And
Like I've helped spirits that got stuck on the earth because they were slaves and they were told that they would not go to heaven. And I asked them, why are you here? Why are you still here? We were told that we couldn't go. And I said, that's a lie. That was a lie told to you. And once you point out the light portal to them to the other side, they always see it and they just move on from there. So I'm the one that points it out to them. if they can't see it.
You just mentioned, you know, slaves, and why is it, do you think, that mankind is just, I mean, we're a very, I think, loving, you know, group, but at the same time, we're also very cruel and hateful. And we've had a long history of, you know, war and enslavement and control. Is it just because it needs to be part of the experience? Or is there ever going to be a time when humanity's going to act more like one, like oneness, like we really are, like we truly are, just, you know, all part of source?
I think this is the school of hard knocks. I think this planet is extremely special, um, and it's a beautiful planet. And I think it was created and intended to be uh, like a Garden of Eden, a nirvana where people, you know, beings from other galaxies can come visit for vacation. But I think over time it became a place that, and not humans, not just humans, but ETs wanted to take from it, its mineral sources, for example, or wanted to dominate it. And we kind of have that legacy now. It's been passed down to us. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Sumerian tablets and the Anunnaki, but their stories talk about creating humanity. And they were a messed up bunch of gods.
Yeah.
I mean, they have all the bad human attributes that we still have. So it's like a legacy that's in our DNA where we're recreated, but are we going to reach there? I think we are. Is it going to be as bad as we think it's going to be? I don't think so. But I don't think it's going to be easy. But this is we're souls, we're curious, and we're part of the creator, and everything we go through gets uploaded back to the creator as information. And our creator's fantastic. He loves variety. He created this planet to be full of variety. I'm like that too. I love variety. I can't just do one thing, obviously. And it's like roles that we're playing, you know and then we end the incarnation. We go, well, damn, we didn't get to do XYZ, so I want to go back and do XYZ. Or I wasn't able to master forgiveness or master relationships or whatever your goals are, and you come back and do it again. And I believe this lifetime for me was completely planned out.
Mm,
Completely planned out from the beginning. In fact, I remember planning it before I came here.
wow. That's interesting. Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of psychic mediums that, you know, there's some, you know, oftentimes plans and planning that goes on before. And I also heard that we choose our own parents, like, you know, which is pretty
We
cool.
we do, but the feedback I got for me is that it didn't matter so much who my parents were. It was
Mm,
where I wanted to be born.
mm,
So
that's
even
interesting.
though I've had other lives with my parents, we know each other on a soul level, and we keep switching roles all the time, mother, father, daughter, son.
Hmm.
That it was interesting that I was told that didn't matter as much. It was timing. The timing of your birth is completely chosen and selected,
That's
and
cool.
location,
That's
and
cool.
location.
That's cool. I like
Yeah.
that. I like that. That's so cool. That is interesting. Hmm. Yeah, it's cool how my wife had a regression where I was actually in it, and I was her older brother. I thought that was interesting. And she also had one where it was cool how you had said earlier that like you can live 1,000 lives at the same time. She had a regression where the person that she regressed to is still alive, like in current times. It was weird. It was really
Yeah.
weird.
I've had that too. Like I've been told that I have a male counterpart in somewhere out in India or Tibet, and he's practicing as a monk to be a monk, but it's right now.
It's hard
So
to wrap your head around that
that's
as a
kind of
human.
mind
Yeah,
blowing.
yeah, it is. It is. It's hard to wrap your head around, but I think it's the coolest thing ever. It's just the universe is just so amazing and beautiful, and just I don't know. It's almost like when you think you're starting to figure things out, it just hits you with another surprise, and it's just always something exciting to look forward to. And yeah, I look forward to many, many more adventures.
Well, I think that's the part of why people want to be here because of that. Because once you discover that everything's magic and you are magic, and if we are a soul in a body, we already know how to master interdimensional reality. We couldn't be here and do this if we didn't already know how to do it. Like, give yourself credit, people. Everybody's walking around, I have no power, I have no power. It's like the opposite. You have all the power to say what you want to happen on the planet. Just say it and do it and intend it.
I love that, but I think society kind of forces that upon people. Is you have no power, that you're this or you're that, or I don't know. It's crazy. I often
That's
wondered,
because we're the opposite.
yeah, and I often wonder too, like the church's role in that, because I do believe they know more, especially like possibly the Catholic Church and the Vatican. I think they know more than they really lead on and tell people.
I just want to dive into the Smithsonian in the basement and have at it. I
Yeah,
want to know what they have down there.
that would be so cool. That would be like the coolest thing ever. Yes, you
So
probably.
my friend and I, who's also a shaman, we went to DC and we did some clearing work there. But we were out in the with the mall, and we could see that little orange Smithsonian building on the mall. And she says, there are a couple of giants staring at us right now. And I was like, I bet you it's because the bones are there.
Yep. That's funny you say that, because as soon as you said I want to see what they got in the basement, I'm thinking giant bones for sure.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Or maybe Sasquatch bones. And in
Yeah.
fact, those bones might be in our museums today. They just haven't recognized what they actually are.
Mm, it's fascinating.
Could be little podunk little museum out west that had a couple of bones in there, and they called it something else.
Uh, All right, I'm gonna get a little weird then. So your thoughts on Inner Earth? Is it just a you know fictitious thing, or
No, I believe the Native American stories. In fact, if a Native American says anything, I would listen to them. And I think we have a long history of ignoring them and bypassing and gaslighting what they have said, and everything they have said has been true and accurate. And I believe the native tribes were of a higher dimension here before the Europeans came. They were completely connected to spirit, and they were connected to the animals, and they understood how things worked. And um, yeah, I think if they say stay out of a place, stay out of there. If they say it's sacred or there's something there that you don't want to mess with, trust me, I would listen to them 110% and not even go there.
yeah, yeah, I get that. Um, Okay, since we're talking weird stuff, I want to get your thought on and your take on fairies. Before I started this show, I never even heard of them. I thought it was like a Disney thing. And then I've talked to like 5 people that tell me that there's actually fairies in the woods.
Oh yeah.
Talk to me.
They exist. They're the fairies created this planet. They helped create this planet. They were here before, when we only had trees and bushes and plants. So they helped create this planet. They're on the fourth dimension and they're there, but most of the time they're invisible. But you can talk to them and people have seen them. So I can talk to fairies pretty easily. I mean, I don't do it all the time, but especially the flowers. Like I'll walk by some flowers, especially jasmine's like one of my favorite. And I'll just walk by and I'll say, you've done such a great job with this plant. It just smells amazing. And I'll hear little thank yous, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So, and did you know your animals had guardian angels in the form of fairies? So like your domestic animal,
I had no
like your
idea.
cat. Yes.
I had
So
no
their
idea.
guardian angels are fairies. So you can talk to their fairies to figure out what's going on with your animal.
Huh. That's interesting. That is interesting.
So there are gnomes. I love gnomes. Gnomes
Mm-hmm.
are amazing. They're they're like little protectors. They're very enthusiastic, happy little beings. Um, yeah, so they're out there, and I think we used to have more of a relationship with them. If you look at some of the tales coming out of the UK and Scotland and Ireland, they had a lot of stories about the Fae. And we've since, separated from, like we have in general, from the planet and from Mother Nature.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that's kind of what drives me so crazy about technology. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love technology. We wouldn't be able to have this podcast without it. But like, I feel like that in general, it's pulling people more indoors and away from nature. And I think it's important just to be in touch with that because I know, at least for me, like, especially in the summertime when it's nice out, like I go for walks like daily in the woods and stuff, and it helps you to clear your mind. It just gets you in touch with your inner self and just collect your thoughts. And it's just a beautiful experience that I think a lot of people miss out on.
Yeah, I was thinking about this yesterday because I've been feeling very nostalgic about the 90s in particular. And my friend mentioned yesterday, it's because we didn't have the internet. I feel like the internet has caused so many problems. Like it started out as a good thing and it's been turned into almost a burden. So maybe we need to turn it around and use it for good, obviously, rather than
Mm-hmm.
for bad.
Mm-hmm.
But and also pre 9/11, I think things got messed up after that. Some of our freedoms got taken away and they continually try to take our freedoms from that point on. And so I get
As they continue to
nostalgic.
do.
Yeah, I get nostalgic about the 90s.
Yeah. Yeah, the 90s were definitely a freer time. I'm assuming that they've always had a control type of thing, but it just seems so much more pressing now. And I think a lot of that is because of technology, right? Because they can do things and communicate, they can kind of do like a worldwide, you know, movement now, and they can be more organized with it. I don't know. Maybe
But
that's
then
my
on the
thoughts.
other hand, you have people filming, all of the protests in Europe that we wouldn't see
That's true.
in the media here if it weren't for people with their phones. So it's a double-edged sword.
That's true. Good point. Good point. And then, yeah, that's a very good point. And people can listen to alternative news and stuff like that. Because at least for me, and I know my listeners are probably tired of hearing me say this, but I can't trust the mainstream media. I don't watch it. I don't listen to it. I just can't.
Oh, I used to be about 90% after the events of the past 2 years. I 100% don't believe anything they say.
Yeah. It's all agenda driven.
Yeah, it's partial truths at best,
Yep.
or
Yep.
they're just making it up.
Yep. Yep. It's theater. That's all it is. It's theater.
There's a character in Star Wars that says lies and deceptions. That's my favorite term now, lies and deceptions.
That's funny. Um, so what's one of the weirdest stories you've heard from one of your guests on your show?
Paranormal wise or just life wise?
In general, whichever one you want to share.
I have a guest and it hasn't come out yet. It actually might come out next week. She's Black and grew up in Atlanta, and she had the craziest experience, just family wise, because her mother wasn't taking care of her. And so her mother would do these crazy things like leave her in Kentucky, drive her to Kentucky to visit family, and then say, I'll pick you up, in a couple days. And then she called her mom, and her mom's like, I'm not picking you up. So she had to find a friend or a cousin or something to come and drive her back home. And she ended up getting in a fight with her mom. And the name of the episode is My Mom Almost Killed Me, because they got in this really bad fight and her mom started hitting her. And they took it out to the yard. And, she's like, I'm on the ground and my mom's hitting me in the head. And this guy drives up and jumps out of his car and gets in between us and he saves my life.
Wow.
And it was amazing to me. She would stay with a grandmother, or she would stay with a friend, or her life was very transient. But there were all these people there to kind of pick up the pieces. And I asked her, is this what the community, your community is like? Is this what happened? And she's like, yeah, if a parent's failing, or your cousin will come and get you, or you stay with your grandmother, even though your grandmother hates you too, or, you know, it was amazing, like how there was always someone there to help her, even though they may not have been the best people to be around. There was someone there to pick up the pieces. But that's one of the craziest stories on my podcast that I've heard so far.
That is definitely crazy. Makes you wonder what's going through a mother's mind to do that to their own child. Wow, that's intense. That's intense. Now, was
Not everybody's meant to be a mother, and it sounds like she had a mental illness or something, and she just didn't get along with her daughter, and they fought. And she just didn't care. Honestly, if you drop off your child in Kentucky and say, I'm not going to come pick you up, she doesn't care what happens to her. I mean, it's crazy to me because I have two daughters and I'm like a mama bear. Like, I've got my eye on them. I know where they're at. I know who they're with. And if anyone messes with them, I nip it in the bud right away.
You wonder the emotional damage that would do to someone, being rejected like that by their mother, and then to be physically, harmed and almost killed by their mother. That's whew.
Well, she's turned it around, and she's teaching about trauma and how to overcome trauma. And she and I agree that all those family secrets that nobody wants to talk about, it's time to talk about them.
Hmm.
It's time to come out in the open.
Hmm.
And that's what she's doing now.
That's what I love. I love to hear that, because that's it seems that that happens often, with people that go through like major hardships. They blossom from it. It's cool.
Yeah. And I asked her to come back and talk about religion in the African American community because we kind of touched on that. And she said basically religion has suppressed the African American community to be very obedient
Yeah.
and in denial of reality.
Yeah.
So I wanted her to come back and talk about that too. So
I
we
think
did.
that's good. That'll be a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm interested, because I think there's a lot of that going on with the church. And I also think too, like, there's a lot of repressions. It's still like, even today, like, they kind of put a spin on it, like they're trying to do something good, but I don't know. In reality, I often wonder if it's, just to cause more repression. You
Oh
know,
yeah. It's all about taking your power away because you can connect to the divine on your own. You don't need a
absolutely,
priest or a church to do that.
absolutely, absolutely.
You don't need to go to church and pray. You know what my church is? This planet.
There you go. Yep. There you go. There you go. I can agree with that. So, have you ever come across any like evil or demonic spirits?
Plenty, plenty. So in 2017, I went to France on a trip and I shared a house with my tour mates and the tour guide and the cook and um, my friend who I met her in another trip that we did to Arkansas the previous year. And I hear this little knock on my door. I'm already in bed. She's like, Dana. I was like, what? So I get up, open the door. She said, something is in so and so's room. And I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, I feel uncomfortable. I feel like there's something in her room. Can you go check? Like I'm the person. I'm always the person. Tina, go check.
That's funny.
So, we don't turn any other lights. We like tiptoe down the hall and I go to her door. And, this woman's now my friend, but I just had met her on this trip. And I opened the door and I'm looking around. She's fast asleep. And I was like, the only thing I'm picking up is on her father is there who passed away, but he's like outside the balcony. So I just told him to go away because I figured that's what was bothering my friend. And she's like, oh, thank you so much, Tina. Maybe I can go to sleep now. So she goes to her room and I go to my room. And I have this ability to check places in my mind visually, energetically. So I've already been through the entire house and there's this top floor and I go up there energetically and check. And there was something up there in the corner. And I could see him in my third eye, mind's eye. And I was like, who are you? What are you? And he wouldn't tell me. And I knew then I was like, I didn't like it. I didn't like his energy. If a being doesn't tell you who they are, they're sneaky and they're trying to pretend to be something that they're not, which is a sign of a dark entity. So I threw him out. I called on Archangel Michael. I said, please take this being out of this house right now. And I threw him out. And
Wow.
that was the beginning. And since Once they know about you, they come around, they test you, they're curious about you. And the thing is all these beings they have an inner light. They just forgot that they're part of
Mm.
the light.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you about that. Like, what differentiates being so evil and dark? These aren't things that have lived human lives, right? Or
No.
I just wonder why the need or want to be like that.
Well, they have a hierarchy on the dark side, and they're abused and told lies like anybody else, and they're told they're going to go to hell if you don't do this. And because they're removed from the light, they have no energy. So they're taking energy from other beings, including
Mm,
humans. And we have humans that do this
mm-hmm.
all the time because they don't understand their connection to divine, and that this is what Reiki teaches you, that you connect to the universal life force and you bring that energy into your body and then out your hands into someone you're working on.
Mm,
So they're completely disconnected from that. They've lost their way. So, and they get energy from your fear. So it's important, if you do encounter a being like that, not to be afraid. And some people are like, well, that's so easy for you to say. And I was like, not if you've got a gang of angels that back you up, or whatever beings that protect you or that you call on in emergency situations. I
right.
don't ever do anything alone,
Mm-hmm.
ever. Like if someone hires me to clear a house, I've got Archangel Michael there. I might have dragons there. I've got my back. I always have Archangel Michael's always with me. And when I finish, I always ask him, am I finished? And he'll tell me.
That's interesting.
But I don't like to use the DEMON word
Mm-hmm.
because they like it.
Mm-hmm.
They like that word, and it like triggers fear in people right
Right.
away, and they feed off of that. Don't be food for them. They feed off of it. So I call them trickster. I call them a dark entity. I don't call them that word.
Now you mentioned fear a couple times in this conversation. What's going on now in the world? There's a lot of fear being driven by the media. Now, do you think that's all just for control, to control the masses, or is there something more sinister kind of involved with this fear driving thing?
I think it's a step-by-step process. And fear, if you are in fear, you are in fight or flight. And so you can't think. You can't think critically when you are in fear. And so you're easily controlled that way. So your superpower is being calm.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think you're able to think more rationally, you're able to make better decisions, and you're able to, analyze things a lot better and more critically when you're not, scared.
Do
Um,
I think it's sinister? Yes, I
mhm,
do.
mhm.
I do. Because it happened all over the world at the same time, and they say the same things.
Do you think it's going to get worse?
I think that's our choice. If we stand up and say enough, it'll stop.
I'm not
Just
sure.
don't just don't comply.
I agree with that. I'm just not sure there's enough people that'll. I don't know.
You know what? I don't think I would be here if not enough people were going to do it. Do you know
Mm,
what I mean?
yeah, I like that. I like that viewpoint.
I don't, I'm not here. This is not a mundane lifetime. This is, I'm here for big things.
Right.
One of my guides, which is the goddess Isis, she told me, go big or go home. Think big. What can you do that's bigger? Like you can send one soul back to the light, or you want to send 1,000. And she's like, you can do it. So I always try to think big. And so it feels like, when you get discouraged that, oh, are we ever going to get out of this? It's just going to get worse. But like you said, don't listen to the mainstream media, because I think, frankly, people here are over it. We could care less what variant came out next. We just don't care. And that's why I'm grateful I live in the South, you know, because they have that spirit here. They have that rebellious spirit,
Right.
you know, and we
Yeah.
just don't care. We're living, I don't know where you live, but it seems pretty normal here. But if you listen to the news, it's like everything's bad. They're shutting down this. And just don't listen to the news anymore. Just live your life as a free human
That's
being
right.
in a free country.
That's right.
And that's your best revenge.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right with that. Yep. I didn't really change my lifestyle much. Just keep doing what I'm doing. I think that's just a good lesson in life in general, even outside of this whole narrative and storyline that we're trying to be told to live in now. Because again, I've said this on my show before. I mean, we're um undestructible consciousness, we last forever. We're energy that's going to continue on, and there's really nothing to fear at all. I mean,
Exactly.
if something
So
happens in this life, we
all your
just
ancestors are rooting for you,
yeah.
and they're all waiting for you on the other side when you're done.
Well said. Well said. Well, it's been a fascinating discussion. Where can people check out your podcast, check you out, those kinds of things?
So I'm on Spotify, My Weirdest Experience. I'm on, and you can find my website. It's tinakinneyclarke.com, and I have all my episodes there. I also have a Facebook page, My Weirdest Experience, and I do Reiki sessions, Reiki classes, and readings online and in person. So you can come check out what I offer.
Yeah, check out our podcast, folks. It's awesome. Very awesome. Hey, I'm gonna have to have you back on the show again sometime. It's been a great discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Mhm.